I'm lame as usual. Hello, Counselor. Oh, I've got a petitioner.
Okay, guys, y'all ready?
Yes, sir.
We're short, two guys, but I guess it is six. So. Good evening. It's 6 o'clock or a little after, so it's time to begin our planning meeting for April. First item on the agenda under new business. This is kind of, you have to bear with me here, and I'll read through this carefully. Application 2204Z, which that means this goes back to 2004. LNC Partnership, LLP owner, Taylor English Duma, LLP agent, parcel 210-01008, approximately 54.94 acres, located in land lot 80 of the second land district, requesting a modification of zoning conditions imposed on the application. And so now the application number reflects this year, 04-22Z. Is there anyone here to speak to this? Name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Stephen Jones, law firm of Taylor English Duma, here today on behalf of the applicant, LNC Partnership from Tri-Lake Forest. My address is 1600 Parkwood Circle, Suite 200, Atlanta, Georgia, 30339. This is a condition modification application for a subdivision that was approved in 2004. It is a country club special exception subdivision in the R2 zoning district. Previously, earlier this month, your Board of Appeals approved the special exception modification modifying the conditions to mirror those conditions that are in your staff report. Because of the quirk in the way that the zoning was done back in '04, the special exception and rezoning were approved by the respective boards with the same conditions. Typically, you would have seen this as just a condition modification by the Board of Appeals because those conditions would have been attached to the special exception because with a special exception subdivision, the Board of Appeals is the final authority. However, again, with that quirk, now we've got to come and modify the zoning conditions that approve it so we don't have incongruent conditions. So what this application asks is that this board recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve the rezoning to modify the conditions, not the zoning district, so that they mirror the conditions imposed upon the special exception by the Board of Appeals. Ms. Morales, would you mind pulling up that? I've got a nice PowerPoint that I want to walk through with you to explain to you how this project or this development, and it's the how this development or this proposal differs from what was proposed in 2004. Next slide, please. This parcel is on 155 at curve where it meets North McDonald Road. It is the lake that you see as well as the larger tract. When originally zoned, this parcel was supposed to be phase 2 of the Emerald Forest subdivision to the south. You see the stub out cul-de-sac, the subdivision to the south, there's actually preserved right-of-way there to punch through. As part of this proposal, we're proposing to create a separate development for a variety of reasons, just given the age. And two, we didn't want to burden the neighborhood of the south with a new phase a decade and a half later. Next slide, please. Just a little zoomed in. Initially, these parcels before GDOT came through and realigned 155, the eyebrow you'll see to the northwest was part of this parcel, as well as those road frontage lots you see to the east of the lake. Those were developed as phase 1. Now you have this standalone parcel. Next slide for these two standalone parcels. This is the original plan from 2004. The lot count remains the same. However, we don't have the punch through, and as you'll see when we get to the plan for this, we've added more amenity areas and more amenities. Next slide, please. So in the 2004 zoning wasn't conditioned upon that site plan, but there were conditions attached which would have made this property undevelopable, and that were a bit ambiguous, and we're not the ultimate home builder, but we felt it was necessary and prudent for a marketable project to clean up the conditions and bring them into current market. First and foremost, and just illustrative, I won't march through all the conditions. They're outlined in the materials we submitted with our application, but condition number 1 imposed a house plan requirement which doesn't fit our off-taker, or our potential off-takers. Next slide, please. And that's the 1867 plan, which is, you'll see a split level with 4 windows. Traditionally, our off-takers and other projects don't build this anymore. They're more in the craftsman style. So next slide, please. Here's the plan that we have today. Same general layout, same entrance and exit at the top of 155. But we've added a lot of more passive amenities. Next slide, please. For instance, you'll see at the top of the lake, this on the left, that's the lot just north of the lake, right by the entrance. There's a walking trail that comes in from the parking lot where the CMU, the community mailbox, which is a requirement of the Postmaster General. There's a pavilion with a fire pit, a playground, a mail kiosk, and then a large open area. That walking trail, as you'll see on the excerpt to the right, borders the lake, goes by a 20 by 20 deck wildlife observation platform. It continues to march along the lake. Next slide, please. And eventually comes down to the southern part of the subdivision, where we have roughly 4.5 acre open wildlife preserve, which the walking trail comes through and then punches out into a cul-de-sac through a walking trail easement. Next slide, please. Then one of the major modifications, in addition to those amenities that we've added, and to be clear, the original plan had a walking trail. We just refined it. But we've also added various open space lots throughout the development. One being, as you'll see on the top right, an open space community garden. That's like a fenced-in area with raised planters. That's been popular in other developments for a community garden style thing. Further to the north, which is almost directly across from the larger common area, is a fenced-in dog park. Then in the very southern part of the development is just an open passive park area. We'd envision that as potentially a ball field or like an open play area, a meeting ground, or even passive recreation for runners or things like that. Next slide, please. And so then you've got, I've just put up here the staff's recommended conditions. These are the conditions that the Board of Appeals approved when it, earlier this month, approved the special exception condition modification. If the board would like, in the interest of time, I can go through those conditions and explain them to you, or I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I think I'm happy with reading them.
So condition number 1 is that the project shall adhere to the country club theme design, except otherwise provided in these conditions. Our plans complied with that. The Board of Appeals determined that we're going to stick with the plan that we presented to you. We have preliminary GDOT approval for that, and so that's our firm concept. Number 2, the development shall be in substantial compliance with the concept plan submitted with the application. There you go. Number 3, streetscapes per county ordinance. Number 4, at the time of final plat, a declaration of covenants and conditions and restrictions shall be imposed. The lake and common area shall be owned by an HOA. The amenity lot, number 38, shown on the concept plan, shall include those amenities we discussed. A mail kiosk, raised bed community garden, pavilion with picnic table, fire pit, and commercial grade playground. The pavilion shall be deemed a clubhouse. Next slide, please. All lots with 50-foot setback will be sodded. 8 front porches or decks shall be finished in character with the homes. The top, these 2 are carryover vestige conditions from the 04 zoning. We tried to modify the conditions as least as possible. You'll see in our application I gave a red line of this. 9, vinyl siding shall be prohibited. All dwellings shall be constructed of at least 2 of the following materials, and all facade, cement, fiberboard, stone, stucco, brick, or real wood. 10, another vestige condition, porches shall be underpinned. Number 11, the development shall include a walking trail running from the observation platform shown on the concept plan at the northeast corner of lot 29 to the common boundary between lot 23 and 24, and that was the walking trail that went to the wildlife preserve. 12, all homes shall be a minimum of 1,800 square feet of heated space if 1 story, and 2,200 square feet of heated space if 2 story. 13, final approval shall be conditioned upon the BOC's approval of the special exception application. Applicant consents to all those conditions. Again, these are the same that were imposed by the Board of Appeals.
And the exception's been approved, is that what?
Yes, Commissioner, so these are the conditions that were adopted by the Board of Appeals. The
Yeah.
special exception has already been approved. The
Okay.
purpose of this meeting, the Board of Appeals is to, and the Board of
Just wanted to make sure there wasn't something else I didn't.
The special exception will have to go to the Board of Commissioners, but it's
Right,
clearly
right,
a
yeah,
recommendation of
yeah.
approval from BZA.
Yes.
Check.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think we'll continue as we've done before, where we'll have the staff report, and then if there's anybody here that's signed up to speak, if we haven't answered your questions by this point, then we'll entertain those. Is there anyone signed up actually?
There are 2 signed up for this particular application.
All right, let's hear the staff report, and then we'll bring them down.
Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, this has been a long time coming. We've actually been working with the applicants for a while on this. 2 points of order. The new application for this year's 2204Z, and in random fashion, the one from 2004 was actually its inverse, so 0422Z. So that was not on purpose. It's just one of those things. But yes, sir, we do agree with that. And to clarify, the Board of Appeals has recommended the special exception for approval. This was an ideal way to get both applications to the commissioners on the same night, and we wanted to have the same conditions for both. As they mentioned, the property was supposed to be originally an extension of the subdivision below, and also they lost acreage when 155 was redone. So it was still, if approved at the BOC, if recommended tonight, and if approved at the BOC, it will come back before y'all as a preliminary plat. Then they'll be able to move forward with land disturbance. Presentation was spot on. It mirrors staff's recommendations. Everything is compliant with what we can have, and you've seen our information in the staff report. So staff does recommend the conditional approval to the BOC with the enumerated conditions, and they are identical to ours tonight.
Okay, thank you. All right. You would call it.
Mr. Brian Davidson, you were signed up for this application. All right.
That happens.
Joey Scanlon,
I'm the civil engineer for it. I just put my name on there in case somebody had a question for me.
all right. That's all that has signed up,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
All right. Okay, guys, do I have any questions of the applicant and the staff?
Not really. I mean, I mean, I do, but it's not germane.
Well, after these many years, hopefully you got something right.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move to approve this with the staff recommendations listed on the staff report. There are 13 of them, and I'm not gonna read them all.
Yeah, we've read them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna include them in the motion.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Okay, have a second.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Ballard. Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. Okay, next item on the agenda is application 22-07Z. Spalding Vineyard 120 LLC owner, 1143 Vineyard Road, approximately 120.88 acres, located in land lot 38 of the 3rd Land District, requesting a rezoning from R2/AR1 to R2 zoning. We have someone here to speak to this application.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
If you would state your name and address for the record.
I will do this thing. My name is Richard Ferry. I'm with Spalding Vineyard 120 LLC, and our address is 270 North Jeff Davis, Fayetteville, Georgia. Gentlemen, thank you all for this opportunity this evening. This project may look familiar to you. We were here in the latter part of 2021. You have the, just put the plan up there. That'd be fine.
Yes, sir. Let me get back to it.
Apparently our help took off, but really the significant difference in this is we ended up losing a lot. The real short background is the method that was being used to go through that process was a little backwards. We needed a couple things to happen first in order to move forward with that zoning, and that was to appear in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we did that last month. And so we checked that box, we were approved, we were comfortable with the recommendations from the board, and what we're proposing is if you remember last fall, we had a 49 lot subdivision. We were missing a little bit of the open space, and so when we redesigned it, we ended up losing a lot, and so we're at 48 single family lots, ranging in size from 1 acre to 1.5 acres. And the purpose of this, of us being here today, is to rezone the property to just R2 for this purpose.
Okay, we'll hear the staff report, and then if you have any other questions, we'll follow up. Thank you.
Yes, sir, appreciate it.
Okay, staff.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. We were trying to locate the concept plan. I don't know if it made it to our flash drive, so we're going to look for that real quick. But yes, sir, as the applicant stated, you have seen this before when it started. And then there's also an accompanying variance that was approved for the length of the cul-de-sac on the north side of the subdivision. But as our applicant stated, there is a reduction in the number of lots from what y'all had seen before. And after we had conferred with Newton, and the applicant has been willing to self-stipulate that the homes will be 2,000 square feet, we recommend that the zoning be amended from AR1 and R2 to R1 when it comes in. And the application is for a conservation subdivision, so which is a permissible use in the R1 zoning. So everything is compliant there. There are amenities listed of a pickleball court, a parking lot, and then, let me see, bear with me.
There's a walking trail.
Walking trail, yes, sir. So when it comes in, everything else is compliant when it comes down to it. And staff did recommend conditional approval. The conditions are listed in your staff report, but we'll run through them for the public tonight. With the redesign of the concept plan, this application does meet the requirements of a conservation subdivision. At least have on the first floor of all structure or all homes shall have a minimum heated square footage of 1,250 square feet. Minimum 2-car garage for all homes with dimensions of 20 feet by 20 feet. All homes shall have fully sided yards, front, sides, and back. All public parking spaces at the amenity area shall be governed by Appendix G of the Spalding County UDO. Following amenity features shall be completed prior to the approval of acceptance of a final plat. Design of the amenity areas shall be submitted with the construction plans. And the playground for ages 2 to 12 with at least 8 play elements, 3 of which are at ground level and ADA accessible. And then all other listed amenities per the concept plan. Sidewalks shall be a minimum of 4 feet in width and comply with the streetscape designs enumerated in code. And a homeowners association will be created to maintain the common areas. Covenants and restrictions shall be submitted with the final plat application for approval by the BOC. The following were conditions that were recommended during the Planning Commission the first time we saw it. Minimum house size being 2,000 square feet of heated space. Creation of HOA is required. HOA shall maintain all common space. Vinyl siding is prohibited. Brick and masonry for sides on all houses with accents of at least 25% on 3 sides of the house. Amenities shall include the pickleball court, playground, nature trail shown in the concept plan. and if the rezoning is application is approved, preliminary and final plat shall be presented to the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners per the guidelines of the subdivision ordinance. So this was another attempt to get the, if it were going to be a special exception subdivision, to get both items at the BOC. Now that they've reduced the lot size and meet the qualifications for a conservation subdivision, this will go before the BOC as a conservation subdivision with the R1 zoning.
And because the house size went to 2,000, we were able to kick it up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
You're not bound by the zoning district requested in the application. You have to zone to a constitutional class. Here, everybody's agreed that it goes to 2,000 square foot. 2,000 square foot minimum is R1.
Okay.
So it's easier for us if you just put it
Yeah,
to R1.
I'm happy with that, I'm not fussy. Okay, we have someone signed up?
We do not.
Okay,
Yeah, well, I got some questions that kind of remain from last time about the flooding, and it's not so much, I don't know whether it's this parcel, I mean, I don't know how this parcel relates to it, but this area floods very badly.
yeah.
And, so I don't know what the limits of our purview is. If this, if we have to decide whether this is gonna contribute to hydrology or flooding problems and approve it on that basis, or if we have to, if we can address the broader issue of flooding in that area. I don't think we can do the latter. I mean, it seems to me beyond our purview. But I guess at the very least, I would need some assurance that this isn't gonna add to the problems that those people are experiencing in this area. So I guess I'd wanna talk some more about topography. There's something, I don't have the exact same plan you have up in my iPad, but on the concept plan I have, there's a, dadgummit, see, I don't know if I can't even find it now. I thought there were some provisions, but now I can't find it. So, I think before when we talked about it, we were concerned about runoff from construction. Now I'm concerned about runoff from pavement, from the hardscape.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
So there will be a NOI and hydrology study. If this is approved, this is just for the rezoning application
Yeah.
that comes in. So this is to make sure it's the proper color on the zoning map with the
Yeah.
restrictions. So at the time of preliminary plat, you will have some of that information, as it sees forward, or as it
Okay, so
moves forward.
this comes back again.
Yes, sir. So this
So
will,
this is just zoning, it's not a plat approval. Okay.
correct.
Yeah, obviously that makes tonight's decision easier for me.
Yes, sir. But if you wish to add the additional requirements, you can, and we can see them again at the preliminary plat.
I really don't know what I could or should want on that. I can't think of,
I drove out there today and I'll have to say that lower end of that property is low.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, the only thing that's identified on the actual, the official flood map is actually the lake itself, and then a little bitty finger that heads to the northwest when it comes in. You see the soils that are on the concept plan. This is from the level
Yeah.
1 soil study, but a topo and all that will be included on the preliminary plat. You'll also have some of your detention ponds and some of your structures to alleviate the stormwater runoff on the preliminary plat when it comes to y'all, if approved.
let me turn it around then. Is there any chance that this particular parcel could be subjected to the same flooding concerns that neighboring parcels are experiencing?
I'm not familiar with what the neighboring parcels are experiencing.
Well, we've seen pictures of like 4 feet of water from heavy rains. And we've been told that it's primarily runoff from the North Expressway.
So I'm not familiar with that at all, Mr.
I saw the same pictures, of course, there was a lot of flooded water, coming down through there, but, so that was our concern, we're worried about that. I know we'll have another chance at bat.
Yeah.
But I was thinking even for the developer, he may wanna see those pictures too.
Well, and, primarily, it's like barns and pasture area, but apparently the Buddhist temple gets flooded, and it's right next door. And I don't know how its elevation relates to these homes. But I certainly don't want to even start down the road of putting homes in an area that is not officially floodplain, but floods all the time.
The hydrology study should catch it.
It should, yes, sir.
Can we
And
have
then
that as part of when they submit the plat, can we have the hydrology study?
Normally, that's part of a land disturbance and NOI.
Okay.
You know, so when it comes in, so that would be after a preliminary plat would have be approved.
Yeah,
So, because they are quite pricey, when it comes down to it.
Okay.
The average layman would not spend that by not having permission to go ahead and develop.
yeah, I understand, and I'm not an expert. Like I said, it's just that this is like the applicant said, this is the second time we've looked at this, and we all kind of came away from last time going, well, yeah, maybe, but there seems to be some water issues in this area. And that it works both ways, it's runoff and potential, so, I mean, ultimately, I don't need to see it, but somebody sure needs to be careful about this.
With requirements set forth by, you know, Georgia Soil and Water and EPD, you have an obligation that if you develop a piece of property such as this within their guidelines, that you're going to at least retain that water through detention ponds, sediment ponds, riprap. You know, there's 27 different opportunities for them to do it, but it's to help control the outflow. It will not stop flooding in the event of a 100-year rain event, but it will control the release, so hopefully you don't blow out somebody downstream. So that's the ultimate goal of erosion and soil.
So, but those policies and procedures have been in place for how many, 20, 30 years?
Probably longer than that.
So how did we get all this flooding from the North Expressway onto this neighboring land?
I have no answer for that. I have no idea.
Well, what happens is water flows down.
I
here.
know, yeah. A lot of stuff goes downhill.
The North Expressway precedes Georgia's Soil Erosion and Sedimentation Control Act by about 40 years.
Okay,
But the water does move through there and it crosses the 4-lane and goes down behind that property back through there, it does. And ultimately, it makes it into the old reservoir.
yeah, I got no problems with putting this at R1, but I just want to put a flashing yellow light up
Yeah,
for everybody,
Yeah.
applicant, staff, and us.
I'm there with you. I agree with that.
Yeah, there is a desperate need for a stormwater type of policy for our community.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't want to add to the mistake either way in terms of creating runoff or putting these homes in a, position that they're gonna have a lot of water problems in the future. So, I will move to approve the zoning to R1, and I think everybody heard what we said, and when it comes back, they probably have some more information for us. If not the final study, at least some more information.
So I have a motion to approve. Do I have a
Does
second?
that go with the
Is
other
that what-
conditions that?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. I got so lost in my water. Yes, with the staff conditions that are, listed in the staff report.
Okay. I'll second that.
Okay, those in favor signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Okay, the next item on the agenda, I believe, is SD 2201. The applicant is requesting a preliminary plat approval for a 26-lot subdivision to be developed from a 50.36 acre tract. Do we have someone here to speak to that? Name and address for the record.
Quintarius Burns.
Address.
Oh, I'm sorry. 20 Olenek Drive, Stockbridge, Georgia 30281.
Okay. Tell us about your plat here.
I wasn't prepared to answer, like, I wasn't prepared. I'm thinking my engineer did everything that was asked for us. The walking trail, the setbacks, and, buffers, and everything like that. I got approval from Henry County for the Henry County Reservoir in the back, for the 2 acre lots.
Okay, well, the issue is that there are some issues, so, if you want, you can, sit down and we'll have the staff give their report, and then if you wanna respond back to that, we'll talk about
Yeah,
that.
that'll work.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
get back to the engineer. Appreciate it.
Have you talked to them?
Engineer, no, sir. We've not been able to have contact with him at all. So,
So you wanna table it? or-
so, Mr. Chairman, there are some deficiencies with the plat as indicated. It is definitely a subdivision plat, however, it does not meet the requirements of underlying zoning. So, it is zoned R1A, which is a 2,500 square foot home minimum. However, your, minimum lot size is absent a special exception or conservation subdivision is still gonna be 2 acres. So there are some lots in this plat that are 2 acres, but the majority of them are 1 acres. So there would either need to be a revision of the plat to hit the 2 acre minimum if they're not asking for a special exception or designing a conservation subdivision, or the application before you would have to be paired with a special exception, application. And once again, kind of like what we did with, Spalding Vineyard 120, have them arrive at the BOC at the same meeting night, so that way they would come through. So there are some deficiencies when it comes down to it, and staff had not been able to make contact with the engineer. So our recommendation would be rejection of the preliminary plat or application, so that way they can have a chance to amend it, not deny it outright. If they deny it outright, it would have to have a 12-month waiting period before it come back to us.
If who denies it outright? I got lost there.
If the preliminary plat or the zoning application is denied, it must wait 12 months before it comes back. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So could we table it and let them come back with a
So,
redesign?
yes, sir.
That's kind of what I think that may be the easiest way for
Be happy with that?
everybody. Do you see a problem with that, Brad?
No, sir. Like I said, but I didn't know, if they wished to chose to, try and move it forward, hoping, not knowing, if it were going to be there. That's why we put a staff recommendation for rejection. But, if y'all want to table it, staff would
Do
be
you
happy
want to
with that too.
respond to that?
He's happy with that.
You're happy, oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see you nodding.
So I'll entertain a motion to table.
I recommend tabling.
Okay, do I have a second?
I will second.
Those in favor signify by raising the right hand. It's tabled.
And you are clear on what you're gonna, how it goes forward from here?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, the, next item is the, SD 2202. An applicant is requesting a preliminary plat approval for an 18-lot subdivision to be developed from 114.142 acre parent tract. Okay, we have someone here to speak to that.
Thank you. I'm Jason Butzel with Green Forest Construction. Address for my business is 7770 Newton Road in Brooks, which is Spalding on the west corner of the county. Like I say, you got 114 acres, got 18 tracts, got 4 road frontages. So all these lots of the road facing with the 100-foot setbacks, 25 foot on the sides, and no rezoning as far as I know required for this current zoning. We've done soils, we've done some of the staff recommendations when it comes to locating hydrants and various things such as that to make sure that we're still within the requirements to be able to get the 18 lots. So we're pretty confident the 18 lots will fit based upon our soils and lot width requirements, lot size requirements. Fairly straightforward.
Okay, you realize that the fire marshal had flagged the thing for the fire hydrants. Have you read the staff report?
Yes, sir. He said for us to locate the fire hydrants, which we've done, and our next submission, will show where they're at and let him determine whether we have to add one. I think he wasn't sure whether we were about to add one until we flagged them and indicated them on the next plat submission.
Okay, let's hear the staff report, and then we'll proceed on.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, as the applicant stated, there is no rezoning required. This is going to be a minor subdivision in the fact that it does not have interior roads or interior improvements, but it is a major subdivision in the fact that it is more than 5 lots. So this is subject to preliminary and final plat approval from y'all and from the BOC when it comes in. Underlying zoning is AR. All lots meet or exceed the minimum standards, minimum width for it when it comes in. This is a pretty standard, I guess I would say a minor subdivision application. The lot is kind of funky in the fact that it has 2 parcels, and it splits a couple different roads, but it's all, common ownership that comes in. And they're kind of, I guess there would be orphans from what the parent tract would have been years and years ago when they were actually divvied out. Fire marshal did flag the preliminary plat for not having the fire hydrants. However, if we condition that, and, staff was going to recommend that rejection, but if we condition that the final plat enumerate the distances to the fire hydrants, or at least condition that all lots be at least within 500 feet of a fire hydrant, I think you could recommend this for approval to the BOC with that condition, and it be updated at the final plat. Point of order, there was a case right as I came on with Spalding County. It was a minor subdivision in the fact that it was street frontage lots just like this off of Cheatham Road and West Ellis. And there was a question on an additional lot where it was not illustrated on the plat where the fire hydrant was. They allowed them to revise that with a condition. He had to go back out, reshoot the measurement with the surveyor, and once it was submitted to the BOC, it was approved. So you can follow a similar path that way with this application if it pleases the board.
Okay, we don't have anybody signed up.
We do not.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion?
Just a quick, I wasn't able to do a site visit, so this area, and I think this is correct, I think this is fine, the area that's marked floodplain on the concept plan or the site plan, that's not wetlands, is it?
I don't know that, you'd have to have a surveyor answer that.
Okay.
There is a creek that runs in the middle there of the area that shows floodplain. So I'm sure there's some associated from the state water requirements, I'm sure that's gonna be, it'll be shown on the final plat.
Okay, and then once again, when it comes back, that will be treated, or that would be considered in the plat review.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
The topo there is pretty good, it's pretty high, all the roads, so it's.
Yeah, I didn't look at, I've been down those roads, and I don't really remember anything.
Yeah. No, they're good tracks from the topo center.
Okay. Well, I think, okay, I need to let somebody else. Yeah.
No, I think I'm good. It is an interesting layout, and definitely glad to see them utilizing all the roads and a lot of road frontage, but some pretty deep lots and stuff, so we'll be sure that fire hydrant scenario is covered for the fire marshal's request. Other than that, I think I'm good.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion, and please make it with the stipulation that the fire hydrant situation will be addressed.
Yeah. I will move approval, and I wrote down when Brad said this, on the condition that all lots be within 500 feet of a fire hydrant. I think that's the proper wording.
yes, sir.
Sounds good to me.
All right, I'll second that.
Okay. Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous. Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the application, request a village node concept plan approval on a total of approximately 147.87 acres located in 918, 922, 938, 942, 946,
The last man standing.
950, 1054, 1130, 1132 Baptist Camp Road, 1309, 1307, 1255, 1233, 1219, 1195, 1171, 1155, and two other sites with no address, Jordan Hill Road and land lot 168 in the third land
I
district.
bet you got one for Newton too.
And I see Brian is here to talk.
Brian probably doesn't have anything
I
to
have a
say.
hard time seeing stuff on that screen.
Okay, name and address for the record.
Sure, Ryan Dennison, 793 Clifton Road, Northeast Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, tell us about it.
Sure. So this is what's called a village, or Spalding Village, right across the entrance from Sun City Peach Street. It's land we bought back when we originally planned out Sun City. The intent was primarily the commercial and medical office node within some senior support services beyond the for sale houses. And then we got caught in the market downturn in 2007 and 8. And then since then, we've had some rather unusual shifts in the world and retailing, banking, everything else. So it's been a bit of a challenge trying to get commercial up and running there, from online delivery right down to drugs, makes it hard to get the drugstore, banking online, everything else. We do feel at some point in time as Sun City expands that we will eventually get retail and restaurants at the corner, and we want to retain that. We also think that there's a long-term need for expanded seniors housing care beyond just the for sale houses that are in Sun City. And as well, self-storage. Those are all things that were originally included in the original plan. What I'm here to talk to you about is that northwest corner of the property. The original plan was zoned for office. We were primarily targeting medical office. And also in that whole window of time, we went through a whole bunch of shifts in the medical world, from Spalding Regional going from Tennant to Wellstar, and Henry Medical going to Piedmont, and shifting doctors' affiliations and organizations around. We got really close a couple of times with medical groups, but have yet to secure anybody for the site. So I think with a bit of the shrinking level of retail that we'll probably get, there's gonna be room in the retail commercial node to handle any medical offices that we can secure in the area. I do think there will be some over time. So the question then was what to do with that big office node. There's just essentially no market for office. It's happening nationwide. Office spaces are becoming vacated and trying to figure out what to do with the space. Residential is the only really logical choice here. And then the question for us was what type of residential. Really, we've got the senior side of it covered. It was addressed to me at a gathering. I think it was Williams' retirement party, actually. Somebody approached me asking what we were doing in the village node. I talked about the concept of converting the office to residential. And the request I got at the time was to look closely at high-quality rental housing. That particular person had a few friends that were trying to find places to rent, and sadly, the rental stock in Spalding is pretty grim. As you know, most of it is old, deteriorated. There's occasionally a few nice houses, but for the most part, it's not good. And his request was to
was to see if we could produce something that would be, the county would be proud of, and that would generate the type of people that we wanted to have in the village known itself. For us, it kind of springboards everything else that we're doing there. So, that's where we came up with this concept, and it's interesting. This is something I haven't seen done yet in Atlanta. It has been done in the West, in California, in Phoenix that I know of, and at least a couple in the Dallas area recently. It's basically, instead of having, the concept is rentals, but instead of having apartment-type buildings with the stairways and the long hallways and everything else, to build smaller cottages or patio homes. Something with some character and sense of community, so that every single person has a house. It's very similar in style to the smaller range of homes that are in Sun City. They're a little different in layout. They're wider and not as long and deep as the ones in Sun City. And then the other thing is, from a garage perspective, it's street parking, but there is garages, so you'll have your option of either parking in the open or into a garage building. It's a mix of units, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedroom units. Concept is to get the architecture looking good, and also to use higher level materials inside than you would typically see in your typical apartment project. We have built a bunch of rentals, some single family homes, some townhomes. You learn some things as you go. Higher quality materials generally last longer. You generate higher rents. People stay longer, so you don't have as much turnover. You set credit scores high enough, and you attract high quality tenants, so you don't get all the damage. And with this type of product, you can actually generate higher rents. The unit, it's essentially the same as an apartment, if you think about it, except some huge differences. It's a huge open concept, proper kitchen, island, communal living area, extra bathroom usually, and then most importantly, 2 things is huge amount of windows. Instead of being a typical apartment with the long, narrow shotgun thing with a few windows at the end, it's windows on all sides and all rooms and spaces, so they're a lot brighter. And then you also have, every unit has walkout patios. Every single person has outdoor space. Everyone has a little fenced-in yard, so you can have small pets, that sort of thing. And then the interconnectivity is all the sidewalks and the landscaping between them. So you end up with creating basically a sense of community that you don't get, I don't think, in any other rental products that exist, whether it's all the typical stuff you've seen, even the nicer, more modern, 3-story garden apartments. Still, you go up an elevator, a stair, you go down a long hallway, you've got a blank door that's usually characterless. You walk in and you're in your little space and you never talk to your neighbors. The whole concept of this is totally different. Sit on your back patio, have a little picket fence around your yard. Neighbors walk by on the sidewalks of their units, you say hi to them, you start having a bit more of a community. And it becomes a better place to live. Selfishly, from the development point of view, as I've said before, they rent for higher rents. And people stay a lot longer and don't damage the place anywhere near as much, so the turnover costs are much less. So economically, it allows you to build a better quality product, which is the front end most important thing. Better architecture, detailing, better interior finishes, and better landscaping as well. So it's a bit of an anomaly. I'm sure you're probably, as a county, inundated with build-to-rent concepts. We're seeing it, it's all over the nation right now. We build in many municipalities. They're trying to get their handle around it. So many people are taking communities that would normally be, I don't know, like typical lots in a Heron Bay or Sun City, something like that, and cutting them back dramatically, just cutting every single cost out. I think we saw a house plan just a little earlier up here that had 1 window on the entire back blank wall. A huge wall of siding with 1 little tiny window. I think the whole house had 4 windows. There was 4 in the front and 1 in the back, which was amazing to me. That's how you get them hammer down the cost, get it cheap, and when you're looking at any build-to-rents, whether it's something we bring to you in the future or anybody else, you really need to look at the architecture of the product that's planned. You can create nice communities, or you can end up with, kind of horrible places to live. And, this, I think, is kind of a much different concept. This is, it's designed to be a community, not to be a bunch of, individual sort of blank homes. So, something for you to consider. It fits in the ordinance under the patio home, category, because they're all one story, because they're built traditional construction, because they meet the architectural standards, et cetera, et cetera. So really, it's a change in the conceptual plat, but in essence, what you're doing is allowing the residential use instead of, the office that was originally planned.
Brian, what do you think, the price point would be, say, for a two-bedroom?
I don't know yet, and the problem is that rents are all over the place right now. I mean, they're up so much. I would say you could take a comparable new two-bedroom, I don't even know, honestly, I'm not sure what there is in the county. Probably the more comparable new two-bedroom would be somewhere up Henry County, up 75 somewhere. And then you'd probably take that and increase the rent by $150 to $200 a month on top of that rent. So same square footage, but, you'd be a little further south, but you'd actually have a totally different living style, and the price would be higher. So we're not, if you're looking, I don't know what your socio-economic drive is. If you're looking for someone to create cheap to rent, more affordable housing, it's not gonna be this project. You can't economically make it work. It's gotta be higher rent and higher level finish. And if you need that, we can do it somewhere else, I guess, but, the whole value of this is to offset the extra construction cost. I mean, it's extra roof, it's extra, landscaping, it's a fence, it's a back patio, it's a covered patio as well. You have to offset that with higher rents, obviously, so.
So, I see in here on the back page, you have on the next to last two pages, I guess, the Echo Cottage garages. Now, what, I was trying to see exactly where, I see all of your
Yes.
parking places and your sidewalks. I guess you had to walk kind of between houses, get back to some of the units, but where did the
On the
garages fall in? Or is that the other little rectangles
It's
there?
little rectangles next to the parking spaces.
Okay,
If you look at them, there's a gap beside them, there's just a landscape next to them, and so each of those little rectangles is that 4-unit parking.
okay.
Right.
And so you would, if you have a unit there close to that, you have the opportunity to rent one of those as well? Or-
Right, right. There's, I don't know the total, it's a bit more than, 2 spaces per unit as well, plus guest parking on top of that, so.
Okay.
Have you done marketing studies that demonstrate a demand for high-end rental housing in Spaulding County?
Here? I would say
Well,
yes and no.
Okay.
It's hard to do, it's hard to do because it's like a lot of things we've done in Spalding. Nobody did it before,
Yeah,
so it was the same with Sun City. Right? You're crazy, Brian. The
Yeah.
average house price is $88,000 or something when we started.
I didn't mean for that to sound so weird. I have a
Yeah.
not a sneaky suspicion, I have a pretty good idea that we need to increase the quality rental housing in Spaulding County by quite a bit.
Yeah, it's hard to do, it's hard to do.
But I don't know that this is gonna serve the people whose jobs I see coming.
Yeah, it's not gonna serve, the bottom end of your spectrum.
So
So, yeah, I don't think it's the right location for, cheaper, more affordable rental stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
there might be more suitable places. I know you'll probably generate more jobs down the industrial park area. Probably
Yeah.
somewhere on the 16 corridor would probably be, I mean, you could take a version of this plan and you could dummy it up a little bit, you could shrink the units, you could porch, tighten them together. You could do a bunch of things to cut the cost out of it,
Yeah,
which would lower the rent, or the rent need,
Yeah.
I guess, if that's a product that you
Yeah.
think you need.
yeah, I'm not suggesting that, I mean, you're welcome to go develop other places.
Right.
'Cause I do think there's a need. I guess what I'm getting around to is this, I don't know if I really see a need for these.
Well, what's happening right now, it's gonna happen to us across the country. Housing is a huge problem now, as everybody knows. We're not keeping up, we're not supplying it. We have the added problem, two added problems right now. We have massive inflation in cost of materials. We also build homes, we mainly
Yeah.
build in town, sort of 800 to a million range. And we're probably up, our costs are up probably 12 to 14% in a year across the board, which means we're transferring that to about a 15% price increase. And the buyers are paying it now. But then also in the last 6 months, interest rates for mortgages have gone from 3 to
Yeah.
5.1. When you take those two together, 15% price increase plus a huge mortgage rate increase like that, which is 66% really, when you think about it. What it translates to in the monthly payment is for somebody that can put 20% down, which is rare, but if they can, their 80% mortgage has gone up 46% the payment. It's huge. So from 6 months ago, somebody could buy a house and make a payment of, trying to do the math in my head here, but let's call it an $1,800 payment. All of a sudden now, it's $2,600 for the
Right.
exact same house.
Right.
And what it's gonna do is push people, although they wanna buy, and they're probably the quality of people that can buy, their income hasn't kept up with it. Their
Mhm.
income's probably gone up 3% in that same time, and their payment just went up close to 50%. And their only choice is gonna be to rent, and then the problem is gonna be, what do you rent? I mean, your choice is an apartment. If you're lucky, you might get a few nicer, newer apartments, but it's still apartment living. It's not, an apartment building, characterless, and you don't know your neighbors. Or you buy one of the existing, or rent one of the existing rental stock, which are generally pretty beat up and pretty rough. And then there will be some people that will get through. I mean, people are gonna be fighting this build-to-rent thing for a while, but some of them will get through and get built. Those are gonna be larger houses for the most part. You're gonna be into a house that's, 2,000, 2,400 square feet. It's a lot to, as a renter, a lot to furnish, to fill, to put blinds in the windows, maintain. And what we're trying to hit is a spot here where you've got kind of like the smaller houses at Sun City, where they're smaller, more affordable, easier to handle to live in, but designed really efficiently, so they're bright, they've got all the spaces you need, each bedroom has bathrooms, that you're not in a substandard living situation just because you're renting. Because we're getting a few things, you're getting people on fixed income. Their fixed income at the older end of the spectrum is not increasing. Meanwhile, housing costs are increasing, so they can't move, they don't have any options. You also have the younger generation, like my two kids are in their 20s. And one of my daughters saved 40% of her salary this year. And that much money, her down payment for the house she wanted to buy actually increased more than the amount of money she saved. So she actually fell behind just because of these huge cost increases. So they're frustrated and they're stuck. But they're also of a mindset, especially the younger generation, they're more of a renter type mindset. They're not as driven to own a house like we all were.
I've heard that, yeah. Yeah.
But, that'll change, right? That'll change, it'll be 10, 15 years, something like that. But if they can find places, a lot of this stuff is gonna be singles, couples, there might be somebody with a young kid or something like that. They'll probably move out and be the house buyer of the next one. Eventually those people, when they get their kids, will probably be in the market buying new homes, but I think that's out there in the future a little bit, so.
Would Minerva would Minerva have this, or would it be operated by some realty company?
We wouldn't own it.
Okay, so you would,
We
you would
might-
offload
We
this
might
to
build
some,
the houses and sell, or, there's other groups. Right now, all the national builders, like virtually all of them, from Ryan and NVR and Lennar and Taylor Morrison, on and on. They all have programs now where they'll build homes for the end owners of these build-to-rent communities. They'll do it on a fee basis. So generally what you get is your owner becomes like the apartment the big high-quality post properties. You know, there's billions and billions of money that's been raised trying to find these type of communities. And so they come in and you have the professional management. So the reason for the size of 216 is it's big enough. There's sort of a sweet spot from about 190 to 250 in a unit count, where you have an entire in-house staff, where you have on-site maintenance and management, you have on-site leasing person, on-site social director, that sort of thing. Any bit bigger than that, and they can't handle it, so you need to go double the size. Any smaller, and it's not financially feasible. So you end up with a buyer that is going to be one of the huge funds. There's 20 of them now floating around with billions to buy these things and set up property management.
I'm gonna ask you a simple-minded question. I travel 92 to Fayetteville frequently, and there was a new development popped up on the left over there that was supposedly geared for older people, but the style home they were purporting was in this range here. It was a retirement type thing. And they had the nice picture out there on the sign, what they were gonna build and so forth. And much to my shock, as it has come out of the ground and is growing, as best I can tell, it has no design. They're just little cheese boxes sitting out there. And I know that, you know, we're dealing with a design concept here, but, are we really gonna build something that looks like the picture, or are we gonna have duplex cheese boxes sitting out there? That's my simple-minded question.
Yeah, no, it's a totally legitimate one, because what's happened in the last year, 2 years, not just on that project, but across most of the national builders, as costs have risen, they've done everything possible to cut costs, right? They're shrinking the side overhangs, they're eliminating windows, they're standardizing window sizes, they're taking bedrooms that had 3 windows down to 1, I mean, on and on and on. And it happens inside too. They're simplifying the trim, they're removing fireplaces, going from stair rails to like drywall, case drywall railings. I mean, the flooring went from hardwood down to manufactured hardwood, down to LVP planks, down to cheaper LVP, on and on. So you probably, you're probably watching that one, but if you probably watch a bunch of communities, you're gonna see it everywhere, unless they were held to some specific standard. Here, I don't know, I'm not sure how we do it, but I don't mind, these plans are already designed and developed right now. I don't mind somehow tying and locking it down if I can do it with Brad in terms of the wording of, I don't know, windows and trim overhang and pediment detail, et cetera, because that stuff matters. I mean, you can save everything. You cut the banding around the window, right? You're putting a window in. If you're let's say it's a side window that you normally don't see, but you can just remove the banding. Well, that's about what used to be $80 a window, now it's $160 a window that you save because of materials. And times four side windows, all of a sudden you've got 650 times 200 units. Next cut. So I think frankly anything that we do, and I'm going to come to you over the next few months with, I'm going to inundate you a bit. I think we have about 7 or 8 properties in Spalding that we're going to try to put into production.
No, it's,
And on what we do, and frankly what everybody else brings in, you should
You have it-
probably
you have it on
most
your
closely
screen,
watching, my opinion, sorry, but the architectural detailing, and the other thing that's really big is the landscape detailing as well. That it's planted with species that will mature well and grow well, because people are still going to be fairly efficient. I mean, we're not building $1 million houses here, so it's still got to be affordable for buyers, but a little bit exterior detail and maybe a bit more attention to the landscaping, and they're going to mature 100 times better. If not, you're going to have the dull characterless houses with, you know, I'm picturing that, the one that was up there, not to pick on that one, because they said they were, I'm picking on that one because they said they were removing that one. So I feel like I'm allowed to, if they were proposing it, I probably wouldn't say anything. They're removing that one, that's a blank wall of siding, a whole row of those from the backside. Can you imagine being in the backyard as a kid, and all you see is just a sea of, you know, and it'll be one color, right, it'll be that, you know, beige. That's the kind of stuff, you know, the tendency is to always pay attention to some of the little design details in a site plan or in the zoning thing, but those are the things that'll make or break how the county sort of matures in each project that gets done, grows. And, you know, landscaping more than any. And sorry, probably the last one also is how they're being managed. You know, you sell a bunch of individual lots, you can have random homeowners, how they maintain their site, how they, you know, things can start to go to the toilet pretty quick. If you have a strong community association, whether it's a single company owning them or a neighborhood community that enforces it, it's gonna mature better as well. And I think that's, you know, I care about that because I'm gonna be hopefully still doing stuff here long in the future and, as long as I last anyway. And, you know, you're sort of judged by your last project, so that they need to mature well, but from your point of view, you all live here and, what they look like as they grow is gonna matter more than anything.
So, based on what you were saying earlier about the variations in younger families and stuff, so this won't be an age-restricted community here?
No, I don't know, that actually goes to Walter's question. I'm pretty sure that there wouldn't be enough market to fill it. I just, usually, most people that are going into a Sun City or an age-restricted community are coming from a huge draw, you know, I mean, they're coming from multiple places, multiple states. Renters don't tend to, you don't tend to come from whatever, New York or North Carolina or Macon or wherever and look for a rental.
I don't know, it's right across the street from the Cherokee Rose.
That's right.
You'd probably get thousands of people coming in there just to belong to the Cherokee Rose.
Rent the units for that?
Yeah.
The
it's-
crown jewel of Spalding County.
Well, and that is
Hey,
something.
I'm a
that
big
we
fan of
can think
Cherokee Rose all over the place.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a destination resort.
Yeah. You know, I think this adds one tier to it. I do think it'll cater a lot to an older renter. Just, it's one story, it's ground level, you know, it's walk up, you're not doing stairs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be more appealing. In fact, it'll be more appealing than virtually all the build-to-rent homes you're gonna see. Almost all of them are gonna be two-story boxes. They'll be small, it's the most efficient square footage, which means it's stairs, which means it's not gonna be that great for people as they age.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a senior citizen to want one-story living.
Right, yeah.
Can I ask about the can we drop down to the single-family area for a minute? How big are those lots?
They're 50 foot, and I think the minimum is 6,000 square feet. So they're the same size as the medium-sized ones in Sun City.
Right,
I think Sun Cities are, if they were, when we were doing them, they were 42, 52, and 62.
yeah, so what,
I think they're still-
do we have a zoning that allows essentially those, like, 4 feet between houses?
Yeah, it's gonna be on sewer.
Okay, it's on sewer, but still,
Yeah, it's a 10-foot, spacing between buildings.
okay,
So
that's,
if you dead center each building, then it would be a 40-foot house with 5-foot side yards, so 10 foot between them. And then generally what you'll do is, probably when we engineered it, I think this is probably actually drawn to 52 feet, not 50. And the reason you do that is with the 5-yard setback, it gives them, if the guys in the field miss by 3 or 4 inches, or if somebody puts a different material on the side, you know, some might have siding, some might have brick, and it compensates for that. The 2 feet compensate for the difference. That's why Pulte does it at Sun City. It just eliminates them being 3 inches into the setbacks.
yeah, but this is gonna be zoned village node.
Right, yeah.
So does village node allow for those narrow side lots?
Yes, Yes.
Because I mean, I can't keep up with everything.
Yeah, Village Node allows for, I think it's 6 or 7 different types of dwellings. And this would be under the most basic one, which is just single-family detached. And then the single-family detached has the build criteria.
Okay.
There's one odd criteria that I just saw today, actually, when I was looking through it, that we might come back and ask for a variance on. For some reason, it has a minimum and maximum front yard. And it's a 15-foot maximum front yard. I don't know why that's there, because we want it to be further back so that you can park 2 cars in the garage and also park on your driveway and not block the sidewalk.
Yeah.
It's a minor thing that it might be just, they might be able to do it administratively and waive it, I'm not sure, but we might have to come back and ask for that.
Okay, so essentially you're saying that this would be kind of like Sun City, except not age restricted.
Those,
I mean, is that what I'm hearing?
Those probably would be more, I would say they'd be 60% 2-story homes, 40% 1-story.
Okay,
Yeah, unlike Sun City, obviously, which has no 2 stories.
not anymore. They did initially, they had
Did they?
Oh, yeah, they had quite a few initially, and then, I don't know what happened, but
Nobody lost
2 or
them?
3, no, they were popular.
Really?
Yeah, okay, yeah, 'cause these crazy old people, they have model railroad trains that go all over, I mean, they use they finish a basement as a model trail I mean, it's incredible.
Be careful when you use the term crazy old people.
I'm one of them, I'm one of them.
The whole room was
No, I mean,
So, Newton.
they're very, and I don't know why, but Pulte made an announcement, they were discontinuing them about 3 years after I moved there. And part of it's topography, because they developed some of the area that would allow that.
Right.
Most of the areas they're working in now are pretty flat. So they may have just kind of used up the areas that were appropriate for 2-level, but for some reason, they made a firm announcement they were
You're talking
discontinuing.
like basement homes with.
Yeah, basement homes, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I thought
Not
you were talking
2-story homes,
two-story.
basement homes,
Okay.
yeah.
Brian, what about the minimum garage accommodations?
I'm sorry?
Your minimum garage accommodations on this single-family detached?
Yeah, so the zoning is a minimum of 1.5 parking spaces per unit. We have, it's over 2, I'm not sure the exact number. What we do is we'll rent the garage for an extra fee on top of it. So you have 1 space out. What you would get with your base rent is 2 open spaces. Oh, sorry, you're on the,
I think he was asking you about the single family.
Oh, I'm sorry,
not
I'm
sure.
sorry.
Yeah, single-family detached.
what's the garage?
Yeah.
2-car. Yeah, 2-car in and also another 2-car in the garage.
Okay, thank you.
Zoom in so they can,
Sorry, Frank.
that table.
Just for the record, Brad has got, excuse me, in his staff report, the development standards for village node, single-family dwelling detached.
Thank you.
That's on page 4.
640, guys, I'm sorry, I told you 2. We actually have 3 spaces per unit. There's 648 spaces for 260 units.
Got 4 on the plans
4 for the single family.
for single-family.
For single family.
But that's 2 in the garage and 2 on the driveway.
Right.
I keep going back to
So,
that
yes.
one.
You covered it.
So as long as everybody
Page
if we
4
buy helicopter on
on
the
the
side
staff
anyway.
report. There we go. Here are the development standards for the village node, single-family dwelling detached,
That's what we'll do.
1,500 square foot
That way
minimum
versus that way.
square
It reads
footage.
better. Yeah, that-
And then you can see the setbacks,
worries.
minimum side yard, 10 feet between structures.
Okay, thank you, Newton.
Do you have the duplex criteria in there, Brad?
Yes, sir. It has the dwelling multifamily condominium. Let's see, dwelling single-family detached, dwelling townhouse, flex units, D dwelling multifamily, dwelling condominium, and then E non-residential. I would assume multifamily would still be the same minimum front yard 5 feet, maximum front yard 15. Side yard, 0 feet between dwelling, 20 feet between buildings. Maximum units per building, 24. Minimum rear yard, 25. Max building height, 35 feet, but may be increased to 60 feet, provided you got proper sprinkler and fire suppression.
Brian, what is section C?
Section C is the flex units.
Okay, and what is B?
B is dwelling townhouse. Duplexes are, I know we're special exception on the village node. So, and Newton, these are copied verbatim, so we may not identify the duplex. Let's see. From a building perspective, building code like ICC, when you get into the IBC manual, single-family detached, two-family duplexes, and three-unit townhomes are considered single-family units per building code when you get into ICC building standards. But that's going to be completely different from how zoning defines them.
Well,
Did we wanna pause a minute and let you make your staff report?
Y'all can keep rocking and rolling if you want to. So,
sorry.
I was actually learning too, so.
All right, I'm good with that.
So, Newton, I don't see the duplex defined in the development standards. I see it in the village node for the permissible use via special exception, but I don't see it in the development standards as a duplex. But taking the building code definition, you would still be treating it as a single family, detached.
Yeah, we weren't
So-
sure of the spacing between buildings, so we actually kept it at 20 feet, which was the max of them all.
But Brian, some of the ecopods are standalone to themselves and not connected to other dwellings, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so every,
Some are two duplexes.
just if I may, the way Newton uses the word eco-cottages has totally convinced me that we're changing the name to patio homes. It's just because of the smirk every time he says it. So, the patio, no, they're all individual, so there's, the 3 bedrooms are a single house by itself. The 2 bedroom is a single house, and then the 1 bedrooms are duplexes, because they get too small, and you'll see that there's 2 of them side by side.
Right.
So it's a obviously bigger, wider, more substantial looking building with 2 units side by side. So you have the mix of them between them. In this layout we have, there's 40 one-bedroom units, which means there's 20 duplexes. And you can see them, that's why I did the second page where I blew up a section of it, that's why it's kind of an odd cut. I tried to blow it up large enough where you could see the different
Yeah.
product types.
Yes, sir.
I think you, Brian, you had actually had some similar type structures when we looked at the 155 village node in the past with some of the area over there.
Right,
didn't you?
right.
Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty good.
Yes, if you look at it, there's a row there where there's pairs of them, 138, 137. Those are 1 bedrooms together. The ones behind it are the 2s, and then the larger building, like 148, is the 3-bedroom.
So there are units like this on the ground in Heron Bay?
No, it's proposed, so they haven't
Oh,
started
okay.
land development yet. Yeah, so the whole concept between them is wide, 5-foot wide sidewalks. What's not shown on here is each of the backyards of these would be fenced in. So every single unit have a fenced in yard, but only with a 4-foot high fence, so to keep in small dogs and that sort of thing, but not be the big, just walls and walls of wood. And it'll sort of help people to find some private space. The things that, the little rectangle projecting at the back on the site plan, you can probably see better on the
Second page.
plans. I mean, if you go to, any of them really, they all have a projecting, covered patio, which would be basically open air on 3 sides, and then they'll all
might need to consider like a little golf cart, garage there, and these on the backside.
But, you know, the
And
garages
everything
are
else you
actually
have,
designed
and
to
people
be-
don't wanna walk that far.
They're actually 25 feet deep, with the purpose being that you can have the back wall with like a workbench or storage boxes or whatever you choose to.
I realize this is a concept plan, and this, I may be jumping the gun on this, but my big reservation about this is essentially, as I understand, you're asking to expand the village node zoning. Is that what's?
No, the village
It's
node
it's all
zoning-
already currently zoned village node.
Yeah, we did it in
But
multiple.
what happened is originally you had a plan for half of it, and now you're using the whole.
No, actually, on the original plan, I don't have it with me, sorry, but we did it in a few steps. The first one was, it's called the FLUM, land use.
Future land use map.
Yeah.
We've actually got the concept plan. The one on the left is your original concept plan from 2006, I believe.
So that's the original one. If I can walk over here and hold it up.
Sorry, it just came up. I don't know what that was.
I had that
Somebody's
before.
going to therapy, so it's good.
Essentially,
can
this
help.
is all the same, seniors is the same, self-storage, retail the same. This is, that entire node there has changed.
Okay, so you're, so that was the medical offices, and now it's become the.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, the two main
the
differences,
Ecopod,
So this was shown as office/medical when we submitted with like,
right, okay, okay.
we'll just
Okay.
never build it, never fill it. We can't even fill a 10,000-foot building, so.
Yeah, okay.
Brad, you have something else?
yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, the two main differences were that northwest corner illustrated in the blow-up on the second page of the package Brian did, but originally they were supposed to be the medical offices, the hospital,
Right.
et cetera.
Right.
And then the orientation of the self-storage, they've added a fourth building and done them north to south instead of east to west. And you added some ingress egress on the retail to the east border that shows how to get in and out of the retail places over there. So those were your main differences with the plan from what was before the board back in '06.
Self-storage, when we did the special exception of self-storage, and I just read them today, so it's fresh in my mind. It has we can't have any buildings within 100 feet of the external road, which the whole point was hide it away. Don't have like a big bunch of orange doors in our face, basically. That's why it's designed like that. It'll just have a sign and a laneway into the back.
What I was gonna say is I recognize this is a concept plan, and I hope you take this the right way, but given what we've seen before about and you said yourself about retail being very iffy and not knowing where the market is, and it changes, and I certainly understand and appreciate that. I have an uneasy feeling that this could be, we could see the echo, you wanna call them echo cottages, or you wanna call them pods, or garden
Let's go
homes?
with patio homes.
Patio home, is it gonna be patio home? Can I say duplex? Let's call them
No,
duplex.
it's only
Some
single
are,
duplex.
some are single family.
That those are gonna, the housing part of it's gonna be developed, and maybe the storage, and the retail's just not gonna happen. And so in essence, what I see is that you're using this particular zoning to justify a lot of housing, and with no guarantee that there'll ever be any retail there.
Yeah, I think that the guarantee of retail is true. I mean, I have no idea. When we started Sun City, Pulte was gonna build 300 houses, build and sell 300 homes a year. It was 3,300 lots, so that was gonna be 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
We were gonna have 3,300 homes. That would have been 2016, Sun City would have been built out with 5,000 residents.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of activity draws retail users.
All right.
Didn't happen. Right now, we're at about 120 a year. It's growing, it's growing, it's growing. And by the time we actually had CVS signed up. We also develop a lot of retail centers. We've done probably 15 Publix and Kroger anchored centers, so we're reasonably well experienced in it. We had CVS lined up to go there, and their number was 1,000 rooftops, which we thought would be, at that point, we were working on it 2 more years at the time. And then everything just slowed down to nothing. I think we had a few years there where it was 80 a year. And as the rooftops kept slowly getting towards that number, they then said, okay, here's the deal. Now the local, small grocers, companies like, Aldi and, on one hand, they had Walmart come in, which is a big Walmart down the road, which siphoned some of the food business. And then you have the small grocers like Fresh Mart and Aldi that were slicing the other end of it. So we don't make enough there, and now we need 1,500 rooftops. And so as we're chasing the 1,500 at this slower pace, as we get there, in the meantime, drugs start getting delivered
No, yeah,
to people's houses, and that starts cutting into one more of their businesses. So, what will end up, I'm not sure. We've,
yeah.
I think probably the first thing that you're gonna see is a strip, see the main center, that, the thinner piece on the long end, that's about 15,000 feet of retail.
Yeah.
Ignoring the grocery box, it's just the leg on the main building that sticks
Yeah.
up. And we've done that before. We did that in Snellville with a Publix years back. It wasn't quite, Publix was about 2 years away, but we built the 15,000-foot wing first, filled it with tenants, which is, financial services, it's a nail salon, hair, a small restaurant, there's only so many things these days. But you can fill 15,000 feet, but designed so that when you get the anchor tenant, it adds on to it. The challenge right now is who's the anchor? Could it be Lidl coming in? Could it be Aldi? Is there some grocery store out there that we don't know about? Don't know.
Yeah,
But the more rooftops we get there, between to the east of us, Sun City, and what we do here, and as you see, I'm gonna come back to you, we have a couple other properties, up Jordan Hill Road, we've got 30 acres.
there's been a fair number of, not a fair number, I mean, there's been some development on Teeman between, Jordan Hill and 155.
Yeah.
Some
we have
subdivisions
100
off-
acres
off
east
Teeman.
of the new entrance of Sun
Yeah.
City, that we actually that development you saw, that was us running, the sewer over to Heron Bay.
Yeah.
To serve that. But what that also did is serve the 100 acres that we have over there, so I'll be coming back to you with a request for housing on that 100 acres as well.
Let me be completely incorrect here and trashy, and everybody can condemn me for this. But I mean, it seems to me, the last year, what I've seen is developers using country club and conservation thing to try and cram more and more houses on less and less land. And I'm not necessarily sure that's a good thing, and I think what I see here is using the fiction of retail development to cram a lot of houses on very little land. And
Yeah,
I'm not excited about that somehow.
It's the exact same story when I came in here, I think a few of you were here when I said I've got whatever it was, 1,500 acres and I wanna put 3,000 homes on it. And it's the same, it's, I think it was, you're using open space to justify it, and you're cramming the houses into a smaller area. I think that's a natural growth as a municipality matures. I mean, we're not, when I came here 25 years ago, it was a lot more rural, than it is now. And you're just gonna see that most new development is gonna be smaller lots. There'll be very few, I was surprised to see these few that are chopping it up into large lots. I don't think you're gonna see much of that anymore. Land prices are gonna get too high. It's the nature of the beast, and at some point, 15, 20 years from now, you're gonna see people pushing, much denser stuff, denser townhomes and narrower, smaller stuff and that sort of thing. It's just the natural progression of growth.
But our density is still net. The density is net over the entire subdivision, Walter. In other words,
Yeah,
we might have the smaller lot, but it is still at a density of a unit to an acre.
yeah.
Or with a conservation subdivision with as much as 40% of the tract preserved as green spaces.
And that's essentially what they've been doing in Chattahoochee Hills, with the whole concept there. It's the only way to preserve.
No, some of them I really like, and some of them seems to me, and I won't name names, but some of them seems to me to be kind of like well, some of them are not nice. Some of them I have problems with, and I won't name names, but they've been in the last 6 months. We've seen one in particular that just didn't work I don't think it works.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Everybody's a different, development philosophy. I probably tend a bit more to space and excess planting. But, yeah, I mean, you should see this thing when you just take that area and just pack it full of lots with no open space between it. I mean, it would ultimately be a pretty uninspiring place to live, I think.
Why don't you promise me this? Why don't you promise me you won't clear cut the proposed retail space until you actually have tenants, so I won't have to look at all the trees that have been cut down as I drive by several times a week.
Can I actually maybe do a blended version of that?
What's that?
The front corner, can I underbrush a bit so that people actually create a vision so that I can convince them of it? There's 4 big oaks there that a while back we promised and we had to design around. Once we prep something for development, then I've got to deal with Steve and Brad and,
Yeah. I was
everybody
being
on erosion control for the next 10 years.
I was being entirely facetious. I mean, you do what you need to do and what the
Well,
regs allow.
I could definitely tell
But-
you I won't clear cut anything that I'm not ready to develop.
But I mean, I'm already driving by the land that was supposed to be a parking lot and has been nothing but cut down trees for 3 months now. And it just kind of go, oh man, why'd they have to do that to me?
Yeah, it does remind me of, I was a little shocked. We have 100 acres at Tiemann and Smoke Road on the east corner. And, I was pretty amazed at Pulte's development over there. They've got so much going on. I mean, it's great, I think, for all of us that they're pushing it more aggressively and faster, but boy, it's impactful for sure.
Yeah, some of those new pods, they stripped the land, and then they came in and planted some scrub pines for the ones they tore out.
I will you gotta give Pulte all the credit in the world, though. They spend the money on landscaping to put it back in, that's for sure.
They do spend money, and they do spend money on engineering. I've been kind of impressed with our water situation out there. We have no problem with runoff.
Yeah, I would argue they probably over-engineer it.
Yeah, they may have. I mean, yeah. Okay, well, I've exposed my heart to you, you know. And again, I'm not opposed to this as a concept. It's just sort of like I guess I'm not as optimistic as you are about, but it's your money, so I don't need to be. You're the one that needs to be optimistic.
Well, I generally get everything right about half the time.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm never right, so you're probably good this time.
Mr. Chairman, just in keeping up with conversation, doing the math, as illustrated on the plan tonight with the number of units, single-family living, this is subtracting the numbers from the age-restricted housing, the nursing home, and the assisted living. You've got 458 units of dwelling, that are incorporated in this plan. If you wanted to find the density neutral, you're actually at 1 unit per little more than a third of an acre, 0.32 acres as your density for this. So density neutral would be 1 unit per 1 acre for most of our zoning classifications, and with this being 147.87 acres, you'd have 147 units to be density neutral. The fact that you do have sewer and water access allows you to invade that, but a little different from what our density neutral in our zoning would be. So at the 1 unit per 0.32 acres. We've illustrated the differences that comes in there. So I think the numbers were slightly off from what we're used to seeing with respect to zoning.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
You are doing different product, though. You're talking a pile of seniors, units that are gonna be 1 bedroom, basically, and then units that are 1 and 2. But I think if you added up all the bedrooms, that would be 458. You're probably with the same number of bedrooms as 147 4-bedroom houses, so, for what it's worth.
Well, and also the village node is not a density neutral district as such.
Yeah.
It was not intended like to be a conservation subdivision or a special exception subdivision where you had a certain amount of units, dwelling units per acre
It's a good point.
that was still there. But, it is at a third acre lot. Brad, what's the lots, the recent lots that Pulte's had in Sun City are quarter?
They range in size from, I believe, 20,000 square feet and up. I know there's some smaller ones, and I'm not so sure that there's not some 15,000 square foot lots on some of the pods that are already built. I'd have to go back to Q Public and check that.
Pulte's are 42 by 120, which would make them about 4,800 to 5,000 feet probably, which would be about 0.12 of an acre, so about 8 per acre, if you did that. But, you know, they have a lot of open space as well, amenities and everything else.
Not for nothing, I don't think you could have 1,500 square foot, I mean.
I'm sorry, 15,000 square
Okay,
feet.
thank you.
Lots, sorry.
I was just got, that just didn't compute, I'm sorry.
I'm running low on caffeine,
I
gentlemen.
understand.
The other thing we had, Mr. Chairman, with respect to zoning, and it finally clicked after reading it probably a half dozen times, the original language from 2006 for the special exception, there is a variance granted for the retail space, the large retail space, or grocery store, I guess is the intention of what it would be, kind of the cornerstone as illustrated. So the special exception language had a modifier that I would call misplaced. So the things that were presented to the board in '06 were the apartments, the assisted living, the nursing home and all, and the storage units, which are all special exceptions per the village node. The modifier being before it, in the actual recorded minutes said that it would only cover the grocery store. And I took that as that was the only thing they did. They may have tabled the others. Like I said, you change that only to after, or the special exception that the grocery store will be the only building greater than 30,000 square feet. I think you can interpret from the decision back in '06 that the apartments, the senior living and all that were approved via that special exception. So I would like to strike that from the staff report. It just took me a while to finally read it and read it right, when it came in. We had not had a village node to kind of compare notes to, so I kind of piggybacked off of what our format in the staff report would be for a subdivision. So not knowing what retail would be and not knowing the number of beds, and unable to calculate traffic numbers, at this point, I will share with you that in our comments from the other departments, there's some concern from the condition of the roadway of Jordan Hill where that red light is, with some base issues. But, that would be exacerbated by this development and Sun City building out to its capacity when it came in. So that would be an expense to the county we'd have to pay attention to. But I don't think it's fair to firmly assign it to this one alone, because Sun City's been driving on it for 20 years, or give or take, when it comes down through it. There are portions of this land that are in the flood map, and roughly the same area in the flood zone qualifies as wetlands as well on the natural resources map. The fact that the eco cottages were, even the one bedrooms and all, it's really like an apartment complex strewn out over that northwestern complex. And the fact that they are more rental units versus single-family detached that are made for ownership is a little different from what Spalding County has seen. And I don't know if that's consistent with the raise the bar, notion that the commissioners are wanting to see. So staff had initially recommended rejection of it, but I think y'all had a productive conversation tonight. But staff will contend that the discretion of the board will be what makes the ultimate determination when it comes in. But just like I said, there were a couple things that were just different from what Spalding County had seen. And I do appreciate Brian and the applicant for blowing up the second page. Had some issues with scaling when we were putting in. I could see the two sidewalks, but I could not tell that that was a, duplex versus the single-family unit. So this is clutch. Like I said, as you scale this one that's on the screen now, it tends to blur, and we missed that. The only other thing in sitting here with seeing this in the applicant submitted data, the minimum square footages are not gonna be there. So if you flip to the one bedroom, and then you flip to the design standards for the village nodes for the single family detached, minimum square footage at 1,500 square feet. The duplex is at the 1,631. The first floor, two bedroom is only at 1,100 square feet. And the three bedroom is at 1,406. So for the single-family detached dwelling, even though they would be constructed as such, they missed the mark on the minimum square footage for the design standards for village node. If the board would be willing to stipulate that that be a condition for a revised plan if they so choose to approve it.
You have any issues with that, sir?
Well, the square footage is always an interesting one. I've kind of always thought it because everybody kept pushing it bigger and bigger and ended up with just the more and more stripped out characterless box. I think in this case, being that they're rental, you want to offset the size. I mean, to get it bigger, you add an extra bedroom. And all of a sudden, we're going to start making it a lot more appealing to families with young kids, which means at that point it starts impacting the schools differently than I think it would now. I would argue that you probably don't want that. You probably want a smaller, more efficient house like the smaller scale of homes in Sun City. I think Sun City's homes range from about 12, 14, what's the smallest group called? I forget now.
It's a
They
1,200
used to
square
be,
foot.
they changed the names, it was Magnolia Dogwood and,
Yeah, it's the new one now, Voyager or something, but
yeah.
the smallest scale is like 12, 14
It,
square feet.
yeah, I think they're from 12 to 15, I think.
So they're all in that same 12 to 1,500
Yeah.
square feet. The next size jumps from about 16 to 1,800, and then you get the big ones about 12.
Azaleas is what they were called,
Is that
azalea.
right?
But yeah, and if you've ever been in one, I mean, I live out there, they're pretty narrow.
Yeah, it's a different design.
Yeah.
I don't like long, narrow. I like
Yeah,
wider, but
they're long and narrow.
I think maybe a condition that if it's three bedroom, it needs to exceed 1,500 square feet would be logical. I just don't want to try to do one bedrooms that are 1,500 square feet or two bedroom. It just won't, nobody will be able to afford the rent and it won't make sense.
And when it's part of these patio homes,
Patio homes. It only took like an hour to grand.
if it's part of these eco-pods, I don't think it matters all that much that there's a few variations. I mean, that it's not up to the county.
I think our challenge on this minimum square footage was trying to figure out, because it's a unique product, what category it fits in. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
because there's I think multifamily, the minimum is 750 square feet.
Yes, sir.
And, I think there's some other, there's
Townhouses.
Townhomes is 1,000.
The single-family dwellings.
Townhomes are 1,000, which your townhome ordinance says to be a townhome, it has to be 3 units together. So unless we took the duplexes and made them triplexes, then they'd be townhomes, then they'd fit the townhome, but I don't like that style. Then you start getting, the aesthetics start not looking like a neighborhood and looking more like a row house, which I don't want to have happen, so.
Brad, this has to go in front of BSC.
Yes, sir.
Let's address, and let's get the issue related to definition of the patio dwelling clear and have that ready by the time it gets to BOC.
That would be ideal for when we get there, thank you.
Because I know within the ordinance, we've got a definition, I believe, patio and duplex.
All right, so on the three bedroom, you're willing to increase that size a little bit, that's what you're saying? Frank, what do you think?
We've got different parameters, and we've got square footage, we've got minimums. I don't see a reason to start varying the minimums for somebody's particular business model. Now, that may sound perky, but I mean, we draw these minimums for a reason. A lot of it's density, a lot of it is the other stuff that goes along with it. And Brian, you've done a great job with everything you do, but I hate to see us vary the minimums to meet somebody's particular needs.
So I don't disagree with you.
Sure.
The challenge is you've got a couple gaps in your ordinance. There's a list of types of residential, which I think Brad was learning that as he was going through the ordinance over the last few weeks. I think there's about 12 different types of residential.
13.
Dwelling, detached, dwelling, semi, or whatever. Single family attached, single family detached, townhomes, loft, residential, there's all this. But then in the criteria, there's only criteria, I think, for 5 of the defined definitions. The other 6 or 7 don't have specific criteria for them. And I think that goes to what Mr. Galloway was suggesting, which was define patio homes, which is an approved use, but set the standard for patio homes accordingly, which probably, I think, again, my opinion for what it's worth, is to set them by bedroom count. So 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. So you don't end up, if you make it the bottom end of the range, which is what, say, I think your townhome ordinance is 1,000 square feet.
1,000 square feet.
Then all of a sudden, you've got somebody trying to do a 3-bedroom, 1,000 square foot townhome where the bedrooms are all like 7 by 7 with no closet. I mean, just what, that, they're trying to cut space and you get really crappy product. So if you have the square footage match the product better, it would be more logical. But that's, I think it's it's up to you, but I think a suitable time to do it probably would be if we can craft it where we agree to it by the time we hit the Board of Commissioners, say, here's a new set of definitions that this will follow. I don't know how you add it to your ordinance, but you need to fill those few gaps anyway, I think, just to make it easy for these guys to enforce.
I'd
Because,
rather see what goes to.
Otherwise,
the
it's all your single-family homes are 1,500 square feet, which,
I'd rather see what goes to the commissioners, what we really want to vote on.
right.
And if we need to change the ordinance before it goes before the BOC, or if we need to work on that, but I just think it sets a dangerous precedent when we don't go by the ordinance.
Yeah, I think, my guess would be that you probably have to define what standards are followed. There's about 5 or 6 different sets of standards. Are they townhomes, are they patio homes, are they cluster homes, are they apartments, are they, I mean, I was reading your definitions, they're actually about 4 of the different ones.
And it could be a matter of semantics on that.
Right. But I agree that it would be good to get it clarified, because should we be lucky enough to have it approved, when we come back in and present a plan to them, everyone wants to be clear as to what we're trying
Right,
to work to.
thank you.
Duplexes could either qualify as a dwelling patio or a dwelling cluster. But the standalone rental units, Brian, I think are still single-family dwellings, aren't they? So good.
Well, they also meet the patio home requirement. If you go to the patio home definition, it follows. Some of the definitions, sadly for me, I just read your ordinance in great detail. Some of your definitions define by that they need to be on an individual lot. Some say that they need to be individually owned. Some say that they need to have, like a townhome, for example, has to have a property line between each unit, which,
And we haven't taken the time to analyze how these fit within those definitions.
right.
Because I know Brad and I have not had time to do that.
I think the one to meet that fits everything is patio homes in the definition side, but then the problem is there's no design criteria for patio homes. So we basically went to, we picked the product at work, and then we did things like spacing in the units. They don't need to be 20 feet apart. For fire code reasons and everything, they can be a lot closer. But most of your categories all had 20-foot between buildings, which we did. We just felt it'd be a nicer product. You know, gives us room for sidewalks between them and windows and that sort of thing. So we came up with what we felt was, I think, a reasonable interpretation of it, but it would be great to just make it ultra clear, so we're not guessing.
Well, is this something that we
You
need
wanna
to
table it?
perhaps swallow it and table it and work on it, so we're not rushing this through at the last minute?
If you want the ordinances to hit at the same time at the BOC, we probably need to, Newton and I probably need time to sit together, and any input from Steve, need to figure out what we need to do, and we probably need extra time to get it to the BOC at the same day, at the same meeting. I don't know if we would be done with an overhaul, having to hit the two different readings without the BOC having to do a special called meeting in the middle of next month. So, and we've got comp plan and all that going on as well. So,
I apologize for stepping
yeah,
in. So
so,
I actually am out of the country for your meeting and the next BOC meeting. So I'm happy going to the one in July for me. I won't be here for the end of June. So if that allows this to
Let's do
happen,
that then.
okay.
So,
I think we should
so we can table
so
it,
we can think this out a
and
little better.
the variance won't hit, or the variance hasn't been considered yet?
Nothing will hit.
The,
Okay, okay, that's,
Right, yeah.
that's, trying to get straight, okay.
And I'm,
planning commission meeting.
next planning commission meeting will be the 26th or 27th of next month. What's the,
I believe it's the 24th.
let me find the calendar. 24th, my bad, I went the other way, so, my fault.
BOC is May 26th.
And then, so that would be and you said,
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I'm actually not here for the June one.
okay.
Right,
So
that's what you
if-
said, July.
All right, so if we can go to July,
Yeah.
that would be 2 months from now, and we should be able to get together. Yes, sir.
Okay, so what?
That's set for July 26th.
That would be July 26th, and then the,
Next planning commission, and
Yes, sir.
then
Yeah, yeah,
two BOCs after that.
yeah, because I don't know if we're going to have enough time from the 26th to the 28th to get minutes and all that done from this meeting to the BOC. I know they will have already published the agenda for BOC, and I don't think the commissioners want it just handed out to them. So that would be an August BOC meeting, July Planning Commission meeting.
I make a motion to table.
So I'm
All
trying
right,
to.
have a second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Could I have just one bit of discussion? But I do, like the idea and think we need to go into some detail here and work on this, because going back along the lines of what Brian was saying, and so often what we see out there, way too much, I think, you know, we sit there and we create these minimum square footages, and people are meeting that, but what they're doing to do so with all their cuts and stuff is not giving us a good product. So, you know, I'm not in agreement necessarily that the square footage is really necessarily the driving factor, and especially in a case like this where Brian and them were talking about they're willing to put in the plans and go ahead and incorporate some of that in their efforts. I think we need to give, you know, thought to that as we move forward here and work on the details of this, as we go forward.
I think we all agree with you, Bruce, that we'll give up a few square feet for quality.
Yeah, and I think that's important.
And it's a question of how we ensure the quality, but I mean.
It has to look like the picture.
We're not in the business of ensuring quality, we're in the business of setting square footage.
Yeah.
That's what we know how to do.
And that's the arguments we've been having, or
All right,
discussions we've been having.
Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All right, unanimous. All right,
Brad, put this on our agenda for next week's call.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks. I won't sort of take up so much of your time.
No,
Thank
we're
you,
sorry.
sir.
Thank you.
Well,
I
we
mean,
need to walk through
this
it.
has been important, and, you know, you guys, you know, you'll do quality work, and I think you know what you're doing. It's just, and I'm sorry if I sounded difficult, it was just sort of like, I didn't know, I'm still not sure exactly what to make of this. And it's weird too, because I think we discussed earlier, and some of you weren't here, but we think this is gonna be the only village node in Spalding County.
We've got another one next month.
Really?
Yes, sir.
About a year ago, we had that conversation.
I love it.
Okay,
Let's get some going.
okay.
But Brad, where is next month? Is that's not
155.
It's 155?
Yes, sir.
Then you need it, because you've got the same units proposed. So
Some-
he needs it. We need
They
to
actually have not
understand.
given us elevations for their units yet, so, this was the most complete look that we've had. So top notch, man, for what it's worth, so,
We're working on it in 3 different counties.
Have a good vacation.
yes, sir.
What's that?
Have a good vacation.
Well, I'll see you before that.
Oh, okay.
All right,
And
thank
it's
you.
with my wife's family, so.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on March the 29th. I'll entertain a motion for that.
Can I move to approve all 4 of them?
We have
Yeah,
to
we
do
can.
them individually.
Okay. So the answer is no.
Really? I thought you could do them all at
Minutes
once.
You don't have to.
Yeah,
but
you can do them all.
All right,
you
let's
can
do them all.
You can do one motion.
I move to approve all the minutes.
Okay. I thought we approved those the last time.
No, they were.
Well,
kinda
there were some
adjusted.
edits, and I
I
think
thought
that,
you said just to edit it, so.
well, that's what I thought they were gonna do. I didn't know they were gonna come back to us.
Well, I'll second that approval of all 4.
Okay, those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Those opposed, those abstaining. Okay, got 1 abstention. All right, we have other business.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, our pleasure, greatest pleasure to introduce to y'all, Chief Marshal Smart Webb, who's been sitting at the back of the room ever so diligently. This is Steve's effort to help us clean up the county, and kind of give us a little more oomph behind code enforcement. And from the time that he has gotten here, hit the ground running, I love working with this guy. We need to clone him about 4 or 5 times over to
Yeah.
actually begin making some headway. But this man makes it happen, and I wanted him to, meet y'all and y'all to meet him.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank y'all.
What do you want to be
Any
called?
words of wisdom?
No, I mean, just gotta get out here and do it,
Yeah.
We all work together and, for, one goal, to make the county better, that's all, that's what matters in the end.
What would you like for us to call you? And don't tell me infrequently either.
You can call me Marshall Smart, or
Okay, thank you.
His mom really did name him Smart. His name really is Smart Webb. He's a man of few words. He has been working very diligently since the first day he got here, and I'm very proud of him and the work that he's been performing. We had interviews today. It appears that we will be adding at least one more marshal to the cadre of code enforcement for our county, and it looks like she will start probably next week.
That's good to see the council put some resources behind it, because we've been struggling. We've just been talking about it without the ability to do anything.
So on other business, since we're here, are we ever gonna hire any extra office help so we can move this planning and zoning business along smoothly?
The short answer to your question is yes. We do have, we have 23 sites that we are diligently requesting support from. And we have limited numbers of applications. We're not the only ones who have the struggle. Miles has been working on the sidelines to watch all of the other municipalities across the state struggle with the same issues that we're struggling with. They're,
Lack of applicants, lack of qualified applicants, or what is it?
yes and yes. Last week was actually some part of a turn that we saw. And I say that because we had 30 applicants apply for firefighter positions. And that is the largest number of applicants that we have seen for our firefighter cadre in quite some time. And I'm very proud of the fact that we're starting to see applicants come in.
Did you increase the rates?
We have not. We are competitive with all of our surrounding counties, and we pay attention to that number as well. And what we've realized is that we've got a great group of people working, and we're using those resources to pull on others within our county. Brad doesn't even know this yet, but we have an applicant that came in today of someone who will be doing soil and
Miles actually emailed me
yeah,
before we
soil
came
and
down.
erosion inspection, and this individual is just extremely qualified and very pleased to have that level of caliber coming in for our applicants. So, yes, sir.
Well, I'm gonna maybe speak out of turn here, but I think Brad's done an excellent job for us.
So do we.
I've been impressed.
Same here.
Thank you.
Well, I think y'all have been outgunned, you know, you've been undermanned. And
Yeah,
I
that's what
don't-
worries me, it's like we're so understaffed.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
it's
the big
just like, it's just like,
industrial development coming.
We feel like, you know, we're overwhelmed, but it's good to hear y'all, so we appreciate
no,
that.
I think we recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we're afraid that we're not doing a good enough job for y'all.
Well, you're
I've been well
Seem
pleased.
to be doing your best. That's what matters.
Just look at the walk. I live in the county, but own several properties within the city, and I work very closely with code enforcement with the city. I think it would be good if we could develop a personal relationship with you, because we see things that are going on that need to get to you. Now, if there's a channel that we need to be going through, we'll do that. But code enforcement and the ability to actually enforce code enforcement is something that we all have been wishing for. And I'm so appreciative of Dr. Ledbetter's handling this. But yes, we'd like a personal relationship with you if we can, to help you in your job. And let's say if you want us to go through channels, we'll do that.
Just don't call him at midnight, okay?
Well, we certainly appreciate it. Like I said, we all been working, well together. You know, if you can't get me, you can always get the county manager, and he will forward it right on to me.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and we would encourage you as the board to develop that relationship with Marshall Webb and steer him in the direction that we need to steer him. But again, I think he's been here a little over a month, and I think he has just done a fabulous job since he's been here.
Good. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
All right.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank y'all.
Need a sign.
You're gonna have to reset your biological clock, Frank.
definitely get Frank on schedule.